सर्वविद्यानां विषजे भवरोगिणां गुरवे सर्वलोकानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओम नमः प्रणवार्थाय शुद्धज्ञानैकमूर्तये निर्मलाय प्रशान्ताय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यं निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्भूतं यथा निद्रया यत्साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बीजस्यान्तरिवाङ्कुरो जगदिदं प्राङ्निर्विकल्पं पुनः मायाकल्पितदेशकालकः वैचित्र्यचित्रीकृतं मायावीव च विजृम्भयत्यभिमः योगी वयस्वेच्छया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये यस्यैव स्फुरणं सदात्मकम् असत्कल्पार्थकं भासते साक्षात् तत्त्वमसीति वेदवचसा यो बोधयत्याश्रितान् यत्साक्षात्करणात् भवेन्न पुनरावृत्तिर्भवाम्भोनिधौ तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नानाचित्रकटोत्तरस्थितमहादीपप्रभाभास्वरं ज्ञानं यस्य तु चक्षुरादिकरणद्वारा बहिस्पन्दते जानामीति तमेव भान्तमनुभाति एतत्समस्तं जगत् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये देहं प्राणमपीन्द्रियानपि चलां बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः श्रीबालान्धजडोपमास्त्वामिति भ्रान्ताभिसंभादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमहाव्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये दक्षिणामूर्तये देहं प्राणमपीन्द्रियानपि चलां बुद्धिं च शून्यं विदुः श्रीबालान्धजडोपमास्त्वामिति भ्रान्ताभिसंभादिनः मायाशक्तिविलासकल्पितमहाव्यामोहसंहारिणे तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। इदं दक्षिणामूर्तये राहुग्रस्तदिवाङ्करेन्दुसदृशो मायासमाच्छादनात् सन्मात्रः करणोपसंहरतो यो भूत्सुषुप्तः पुमान् प्रागस्वाप्समिति प्रबोधसमये यस्य प्रत्यभिज्ञायते तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये बाल्यादिषु अपि जागृतादिषु तथा सर्वास्वस्थास्वपि व्यावृत्तास्वनुवर्तमानं नित्यन्तस्फुरन्तं सदा स्वात्मानं प्रकटीकरोति भजतां यो मुद्रया भद्रया तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये विश्वं पश्यति कार्यकारणतया च स्वामिसम्बन्धतः शिष्याचार्यतया तथैव पुत्रात्यात्मना भेदतः स्वप्ने जागृति वा य एष पुरुषो मायापरिभ्रामितः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये भूरम्भांसि नलो नीलोऽम्बर्मर्णार्थो हिमांशुः पुमान् इत्याभाति चराचरात्मकमिदं यस्यैव मूर्त्यष्टकं नान्यत् किञ्चन विद्यते विमृशतां यस्मात् परस्मात् विभोः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः। इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये सर्वात्वमिति स्फुटीकृतमिदं यस्मिन् समुष्मिन् स्तवे तेनास्य श्रवणात् दत्तमननात् ध्यानात् संकीर्तनात् सर्वात्वमिति महाविभूतिसहितं स्यादीश्वरत्वं स्वतः सिद्धेत् तत्पुनरष्टधा परिणतं चैश्वर्यमव्याहतम्।
Somebody asked for a book, Ashish.
Yes, yes. Ashish. Yeah. Okay, shall we do meditation? प्रातस्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वं सच्चित्सुखं परमहंसगतिं तुरीयं यत्स्वप्नजागर सुषुप्तमवैति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः. I meditate upon Om Namah Shivaya. I see the meaning of Om Namah Shivaya. And with the understanding of the meaning of Om Namah Shivaya, I chant Om Namah Shivaya as much as I can. So the word Namaha means I give up. There are different meanings of the word Namaha. The most famous meaning of Namaha, of course, is to bow. But the meaning of Namaha for a Vedantic student is to give up. Shivaya means for the sake of Shiva. So the meaning of Namah Shivaya is I give up something for the sake of Shiva. So I meditate upon this meaning. So the meaning of the meditation on Namah Shivaya is to do viveka. To be able to discriminate between the truth, the reality, and the one that appears as reality, but it is not. I meditate on the example of a golden ornament, where the ornament, the name and form of the ornament is not on the same level of reality as the gold. In that manner, I meditate upon the Atma, which is Shiva, and all the experiences that are indistinguishable from the Atma. So the meaning of Namah Shivaya is that I see the distinction I meditate upon the distinction between my experience and myself. I see that all my experiences are at a lower level of reality than the Atma, myself. Sometimes we use the word not real. But I think it is better to meditate upon the different levels of reality rather than to try to see that experiences are unreal. It is much more effective me to distinguish between Paramarthika Sat the absolute reality, which is Shiva, and Vyavaharika Sat, which is a lower form of reality. It does have some reality, but not to the same degree as Shiva. So my meditation on Om Namah Shivaya is on the basis of giving up a false sense of reality to a single entity which is a mixture of myself, the Atma, and the experiences, the Anatma. Paramarthika Sat and the Vyavaharika Sat, the absolute truth and the transactional truth. Here in the meditation, I see this distinction more clearly. Namah Shivaya. So I give up the irrational clinging to the false notion of reality to my experiences. In my transactions, in the daily conduct of my life, perhaps I cannot yet make this distinction clearly. So in meditation, I create a situation, a condition where the giving up of the false reality, the giving up of a lower form of reality as reality is practiced. I see that my experiences have a beginning and an end. Even when they are there, they are fluctuating. They are not constant. They are conditional. They depend upon a situation. And ultimately, they depend upon me. All experiences have to wait for me. So they are dependent on me. They are conditional on me. Whereas I the very nature of Shiva is totally different. It has no beginning. No end. It is not conditional. It is independent. Namah Shivaya. I give up the careless conclusion of giving reality to my experiences. I take care in observing the distinction between the two levels of reality. So the meaning of Namah Shivaya is to meditate upon the distinction between the two levels of reality. As much as I can. Eventually, this controlled meditation can be expanded into the daily transactions. It is a careful lighting of a fire that I have to protect in meditation, but once it takes hold, it can withstand the environment of daily transactions. This is the meaning of Om Namah Shivaya. I pray to Ishvara that may I chant Om Namah Shivaya and in chanting may the meaning of it become more and more evident to me. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sudrabhashakritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyoma Vyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Kukarasvandakaro Vai Dukarasvannivantakaha Andakara Niloditvan Guruditya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Verse number 9. Jagritasthano Vaishvanaraha Akara Prathama Matra Aptiradimatvat Apnoti Havai Sarvan Kaman Adishcha bhavati ya evam veda Swapnasthanas taijasaha Ukaro dvitiya matra Utkarshat ubhayatvat Va Utkarshati havai jnana santatim. Utkarshati havai jnana santatim. Utkarshati havai jnana santatim. Samanascha bhavati na asya abrahma vitkule bhavati ya evam veda Sushuptasthana pragyaha Makarastritiya matra Miterapi terva Minoti hava idagum sarvam Apitischa bhavati ya evam veda. So I'm thinking this 4 small booklets of the translation of the Karikas by Swami Paramarthananda is a good thing. I think it is much more clear than the one that we have in this book that you all have, which is good enough for the time being. But I think that I was looking at this and it makes sense. So I still have to ask Chennai for their permission. It will take me some time to figure out. So what I can do, I think it should be okay. I'll just make some copies of a few verses that we are going to cover and send it to you by PDF. So you can, I was going to do that last night, but I didn't get time to do so. So I think we will do that. That makes sense. So this is a very good set. We don't have any more sets available. Maybe one that we can use in the library, Raj and Meera. People can look at it or even make copies if they want. But I'll try to figure out some way to get them over to you. Okay. So now we begin. We're almost at the end of the Upanishad, and then the Karikas now take over. So we still have a few more verses of the Upanishad still to go, but we are almost at the end of that. So we will do Karika number 19 today. We'll begin with that. So let's at least chant it. Vishwas, you have the 15th, the 19th Karika there somewhere?
Which one?
19. So what page number is it at?
7. 7.
Yeah. So Vishwasya Atva Vivakshayam Vishwasya Atva Vivakshayam Adi Samanya Mutkatam Matra Sampatipattau Syat Apti Samanyam Evacha. So we will begin with looking at this number 19. We'll start with that, and perhaps that's all we will do today. It's a lot to cover on that. So Vishwasya Atva Vivakshayam Vishwasya Atva Vivakshayam. Just look at that. We'll look at the other things. So let's just look at the word, the sentence meaning. So Vishwasya mean the person who is awake. So the person who is awake. And so we have seen that the person who is awake has a lot of things to use in the experiences. So for example, you have your body. Not only do you have your mind, not only do you have your pranas, but also the expression of the mind and the pranas in the form of a body you also have to use. This is not true for the other things, but for the waking state, you can move your fingers, you can talk to people, you can listen, you can do a lot of things. It's not true for the other states. But for this state, you have your entire set of equipment that you can use. This is what is called Vishwa. It's called Vishwa. The Vishwa is also nothing but an aspect of Vaishwanara, of Virat. So in this case, both of them are very similar. In other words, for example, the classical case we have taken is that of an ocean. So the ocean has the ability not to be quiet. It has the ability to be like a lake. It's very possible that it doesn't express itself. When I went for this cruise about 2 months ago, there were portions where the whole ocean looked so quiet, it was like a lake. But then it has the expression, it has the ability rather, not expression, it has the ability to display a lot of form, a lot of functions, a lot of wind-related activities and so on. So that's what is called Virat. And one of the waves out of that is also nothing but a sort of like a part, an aspect of the whole Virat. This is who we are. This is called Vishwa. Okay? So now we need to meditate upon by understanding the identity between the letter and myself. Vishwasya atva vivakshayam. Vivaksha means vaktumichha is called vivaksha. Vaktumichha. So this is sananta, which means that the intent of talking about it is called vivaksha. And so Swami Maheshanji makes a point. He says, vivaksha means to convey how the thing should be understood. So he says it is not repetition where, like for example, when you are teaching some even simple things like arithmetic or language to students, some younger people, 7, 8, 9-year-old, the whole idea is that I'm giving you the method to understand, but it is up to you to now apply it in all cases. This is called vivaksha. See, vivaksha is not just to give a lecture where every word is taken into account and then after that you're done with. There's nothing else you could do. No. Vivaksha means that I'm just giving you the method on how to analyze, how to understand, and then now you need to use your own paraphernalia, your own mind, your own equipment to now understand the rest of it. This is called vivaksha. So similarly here, the Gaudapada and in fact the Upanishad itself says that Vishwa needs to identified with Akara. Why? What is the Vaktumichha? What is meant to be conveyed? This we have to see. So there's nothing wasted here. It's not like saying, just repeat it. You just say Om. Om means you, O, U, Ma. But just like we did on the Om Namah Shivaya, it has to be understood. Why are we doing this? So similarly, in the Ucharanam of Om, there is a identity that the Vishwa needs to have with each aspect of Om. And so here, the aspect of Om is Akara. This is what is called Atva. Atva means the status of is called Atva. Status of is called Atva. So therefore now we can see, it says, Vishwasya Atva Vivakshayam. Let's see what he says. I think I'm going to abandon as much as possible, abandon this and go to Swami Paramarthananda's translation. And even there I will bring in some of the ideas from Paramarthananda's. In addition to that, also bring in Swami Maheshananda's. So I studied quite a bit yesterday, so I'll convey that to you. So if you look at the translation that Swami Paramarthananda said, while retaining to, in fact, let me just read every aspect of it. Matra sampratipattau. Matra sampratipattau. While relating to the letters, in terms of relating to the letters, the constituent part of Om, in doing so, Vivakshasya Atva Vivakshayam. When Vishwa is to be identified with and the rest of that is is just some aspects of it. Adi Samanyam means the similarity of primacy, because it is the main one, primate. So the similarity of primacy, Adi Samanyam, Evam cha Apti Samanyam, as well as the similarity of all pervasiveness. We saw that last class, that is there in almost all words. You modify it by E or U, but really is there. The very first sound that you do is And evam cha apti samanya, as well as the similarity of all pervasiveness, syad utkatam. So here there is a translation by Swami Parmarthanandaji, which says becomes evident. Syad utkatam. Swami Maheshanandaji goes crazy on this word utkatam and gives a meaning much more in depth than just becoming evident. So we will go into that in a minute on what it means. Okay, so the meaning of the whole sentence is, while relating to the letters, when Vishwa is to be identified with the similarity of primacy as well as the similarity of all pervasiveness becomes evident. Okay, this is the meaning. So we need to look into that to see what does it really mean, why that is the case, and so on. So let's look into that. Let's start with my notes that I prepared. Okay. So Swami Maheshanandaji starts with an example of heat, any kind of a heat. So what happens is that we are encountering heat in a variety of different circumstances. Like, for example, we find that water is hot, or a metal object is hot, or that even there is heat in the room, and so on. So when we are comfortable with that, we find that this water is not hot, or that this vessel it's cold, it needs to be heated, and so on. But in doing so, if you look into it a little bit, you find that there is only one source of heat, which is fire. You cannot have another substance which competes with fire as the source of heat. There is one source. Now, the heat of the fire has the ability to be transferred to other objects. It has the ability. And by itself has the ability, the fire has the ability to be like a small lamp in which light is predominant but the heat is not. It has that ability. It can do that. It's the beauty of the whole creation. Not like you just have a single fire. So you look at the beauty of the creation, where the fire can be very small by itself And it won't even, it won't really kill you if you were to touch it. Or the fire can be a conflagration where it is so powerful that you can't even go near it. So that it has. But there is no competing entity that says, I also can generate heat, just like fire does. No, that doesn't happen. It's a single source. And the fire can be duplicated by giving it to some other substances. This is exactly what happens. You first turn the fire on, then you put a vessel on it, and the vessel should be metallic. When the metal becomes heated, then you pour water into it, and the heat of the metal heats the fire, heats the water. And if you want, supposing you want to have a baby's bottle for milk, then you put the baby's bottle into the water, and so the vessel itself now, the baby's bottle becomes, so there is a transference of heat in all of those cases. But really there is, in all these cases, there is a single source of fire. This is the situation. Now, we need to see that consciousness, sentiency, has a single source. You are conscious. I am conscious. And in fact, we have a lot of parts to ourselves that are conscious. Eyes are conscious. My ears are conscious. It has the ability to look at this. You're hearing some sounds. And all of these sentiency of the various parts, not only that, you have a conclusion that I am conscious. I am sentient. This is me. All of this is like the heat of the fire. There is a single consciousness. There's only one source of consciousness. There's only one source of sentience. It is not many sources. It appears like things are conscious, things are not conscious. And so therefore everything is separate from each other. But really speaking, there is only one source of consciousness. Okay. So now Swami Meshananji makes an interesting point. He says, so one other thing here, the consciousness is given to various things. We already saw that it's given to the eyes and so on. And so we can even say, it's also even saying that, like for example, supposing there is a tree which is on the banks of a river, and it is tilting because there was some erosion. So you can say this tree wants to fall. Or Swami Meshananji gives us example. He says you can say that the modern times are spoiling the people. This is not a good time. So it looks like the time itself is conscious. So the idea is that we have common usage in variety of forms. I am conscious. This tree is conscious, it feels like it is falling down, and so on. But really these are just simply usages, and I don't see that I should have the viveka to see that there is only one source of consciousness, which is Ishvara, which is Brahman. And then it is imparted to the various things. Okay. Now, there's another thing that happens to this. So you feel, here Swami Mahesh gives this example. He says that, sometimes, so for instance, he's given different examples. I'm just going to use a modern example of it. Supposing there is a taxation, a change in taxation. And so the government makes a new rule that from this point on, such and such earners will be given more tax. So you look at your earnings and you say, phew, I am not affected by this. Let others be affected by it and so on, but I am protected. So you feel that it's okay. I don't mind. At least I am saved because I did not fall under this. Okay? So now, here's the thing. When we say that the world is mithya, that my experiences have a lower level of reality, when we think that, you know what happens? What happens is that you include all of your experiences as subject to this new rule. It's kind of like taxation. The new rule is that it is a lower level of reality. Rule meaning that a method of analyzing that whatever is changing, whatever that has a beginning and an end, has a lower level of reality, isn't it? So we know this now. And so based on that, all I have to do is to make sure that I correctly classify all of my experiences as falling under this lower level of reality. In short, if I could use the word mithya for this, I find that yes, this makes sense. All my experiences are mithya. Here, what happens is, you don't include yourself in that. It is kind of like, I'm paraphrasing a lot of the examples that Swami Mahesh gave here. It is very much like saying, phew, I am not affected by this taxation. Let the whole world be mithya, but I am not mithya. I am satya. I am the truth. Which I? The Vishwa, the waker. So there is a false conclusion here, which is very important to see. There is a false conclusion that you draw the line falsely. You do not include Vishwa as part of the mithya. You do not include Vishwa as part of the mithya. You only include the outside world as part of the mithya. Therefore, the intent of this verse, Sri Gaudapada Ji points out, the intent of this verse is that you try to see that even the Vishwa is to be identified with a part of the reality. Atvasya vivakshayam, Vishwasya atva vivakshayam, meaning that the Vishwa, meaning me as I see myself, as I evaluate myself, my name, my birth, who I am, as the experiencer. See this, I will just use the word experiencer. So the experiences and the experienced, experiencer and the experienced are divided. You find that I'm willing to give up experiences. Not completely yet, but I'm working on it. By looking at the experiences as mithya. But the experience is to be untouched. The experiencer should not be, because it's me. He says that the real meaning of the verse, the real meaning of dividing the Om into the constituents and then relating to it is this. You should also consider that the Vishwa is also a lower level of reality. This is the key thing. So, because this number 19, the Karika number 19, which makes a distinction, which Gaudapada says, it looks like it is just a repetition. And in looking at Swami Paramarthananda's, I have some commentary they had given, he also doesn't really go into the depth of this. He says this is just a recollection of the verse number 9, because the verse number 9 we saw earlier, remember? Jagrita sthanaha vaishwanaraha. Here Swami Maheshanand makes another very interesting point. He says that verse number 9 uses the word vaishwanaraha. The Karika number 19 uses the word Vishwa. And the reason the Karika uses Vishwa, because you see, the thing is, this is what Swami Maheshananji points out, he dissects every word. He has such shraddha. It's not like, Gaudapada just said, if he's writing a commentary, then it must add something to it. And so he makes this point. He says, why is it that there are two words used? One is Vaishwanavar, one is Vishwa. The reason is, in this case, the vivaksha, the intent is, you're not worried about the whole world. Let the whole world take care of itself. It's really me as a person. What is my future? What should I do as a person? So now the vivaksha is brought down from Vaishwanavar to Vishwa. Beautiful point. So in the verse number 9, Jagrita Sthanaha Vaishwanaraha Akaraha Prathama Matra. And then there's some similarity given and so on that is not as key to this argument as that I'm picking up from Swami Maheshananji. So here it says that what we need to do, this is the vivaksha. You see, when a teacher teaches a formula to a student and gives a certain examples, it's a complex formula, not a complex in the sense, it's just it's a formula. And just like, for example, you say 2 plus 3 is equal to 5. And then 2 plus 3 and squared is 25. So now there is a formula. So the formula is that when you square things, you have to multiply it itself twice. A cube made 3 times. This is a formula. So the vivaksha of the formula is not just using one example after another. You can just say 5 times 5 is equal to 25. And 6 times 6 is 36. And you give a lot of examples like this. But eventually what you need to do is to understand that there is a formula to be used. So the vivaksha here is that there is a formula. And the formula is that the Vishwa is only equal to A, not to the whole thing. Because, why not? Because the whole thing means that it should be present in all cases. The Vishwa is not present in all cases. This is what I have to see. That if I am looking for moksha, if I am looking for a complete freedom, then I need to give up my partialness. And being awake is being a partialness. It is only a part of the whole thing. So this is the real meaning of this verse, of the Karika, number 19. Because he extracts the meaning of verse number 9, Jagrita Sthanaha, Vaishwanaraha, Akaraha, and says, what does it really mean? What do I need to do? What we need to do is this. This is the summary of the whole thing. What we need to do is to see that myself as a waking person is also false. I should not take myself that much seriously. So you talk about Namah Shivaya, the Namaha is to be not only looking at, you'll say, okay, I'll give up all the experiences and so on, but don't touch me. Not true. Then you're not really completely qualified for understanding. So the Vishwasya Atva Vivakshayam means that the formula we have to see is that just my waking experiences and the experiencer of the waking experiences, both of them are false. I remember Swami Dayananji had given this beautiful example. He said, there's, let's say you form a company. You're starting a startup. Starting a startup has become like eating samosas. Really. You just go to these places, they're like young kids, 19s. What are you doing? Oh, I'm working my second startup. Second startup? And this Steve Jobs has changed things completely. All you have to do is to come up with some application, and then that becomes a startup. You invite a couple of your people, and then you can do well. Actually, it's very possible. So there's all kinds of things that you can start, and so on and so forth. So the startup business is a very interesting one. So now you can see how you can start something from a beginning, but it really ends. So the thing that you need to do is to say that I am not part of this startup. So Swami Dayanand used to say that. He says, supposing you have a startup. So you form a company and you hire a few other people to help you. Okay? So this becomes a complete startup. Then the startup runs into economic problems, financial problems. And you're saying that no customers are coming and so on. And so what you do is you start laying off all of your other people, but you keep yourself. You keep yourself. Then you say, maybe I can survive just by myself. Eventually, though, you may decide, even I am really not part of the startup. My status as a businessman has failed. So you go back to not becoming businessman at all, you dissolve the whole company. So I remember this, he used to say the same thing, that what happens is that our first attempt is that maybe I should just use these instructions to falsify the world. But I don't touch myself. But this should be seen only as an intermediate step, and a valid one. So supposing you are part of a startup and you're having financial difficulties, yes, you should now please approach your employees and say, we're going to have to fire you. This is not going to do. So he says, what about you? He says, well, I'm going to see if I can survive. Then after 6 months you fail, no, even I cannot survive. Let me write myself off, and I'm no longer a businessman on this startup. So therefore, Swamiji used to say, Swami Dayanand used to say that yes, if you want to simply say that this is just an intermediate step, but if the whole company is failing, then you should be ready to write yourself off too. Exactly the same thing is being said here in this very technical. I had not related these two things until Swami Maheswaranji pointed out, but it is very clear to me that what needs to happen is nothing is sacred other than the Sakshi. Sakshi is the only one, which is not a company. You are the person itself. You're not starting a company. To be a human being is to start a company, really. And then you impart a certain reality to itself. These are my thoughts, these are my people, this is my sons, daughters, and so on. And this whole company is functioning. Then it starts to give you problems. Your kids give you problems. Your knees are a problem. Your kidney is failing. Your heart is a problem. And then you want to say, what can I do? These are all problematic. All you have to do is to say, there is something in you that is worth preserving, which is Ishvara. which is Brahman. And at first I don't, I said, no, there must be some other way. That's too difficult. It's not too difficult, that is the only thing that is simple. But no, I don't believe in that. And so the whole process of going from the lower level of reality to the higher level of reality means that you have to be very honest and be willing to see the reality. And part of that reality is that you cannot take yourself very seriously. Just like you don't take others seriously, the same thing happened to be done with you. This is the meaning of this verse. Very beautiful, very profound. Just very profound in the way he has described it. I've not seen this kind of depth of understanding in any of the acharyas that I have ever met, honestly. This is a wonderful person. So here he's pointing out that what needs to be kept in mind as we go through this is that this sense of consciousness that I have, the conclusion that I am conscious, because to conclude that I am a conscious entity is a very big thing. You're now capable of a lot of things. You're capable of thinking, about acting, conducting your life. You're not dead, you're alive. You're a very powerful person. The problem is that this power to be alive, this power to be conscious and to be powerful in acting, in thinking, analyzing, voting, all these kinds of things is not your own. It is really Ishvara. Why? Because no fire, no heat is possible without fire. At every point you should see that your consciousness, your awareness, your power of thinking is really you're expressing Ishvara's power. You're just borrowing it. And it's very much like water feeling, I am just as powerful to burn people as the fire. And then if you don't realize that I am in touch with the fire, that's why I'm hot. This is the meaning of Vishwasya Atva Vivakshaya. He says that, Swamiji says this. In Hindi he says, ठीक इसी प्रकार विश्व के अंदर अत्व इसलिए कह रहे हैं कि विश्व के अंदर जीव भाव की प्रतीति, चेतनता का प्रतीति है, लेकिन उस चेतना का स्वरूप उस जीवन में स्वयं नहीं है, परमात्मा के कारण आया हुआ है, ये समझना है. He says, I have to understand, this is what I got to do. So I'm going around saying I'm independently. At all points I should see that really this is, and so this sense of independence and so on is false. This is what I say, I don't have to take myself seriously. I'm not going to give it up. Because the question is, why should I give it up? Why? What else is there? Only when something else is there will I give it up. Namah Shivaya. And so I can only give it up if I have something bigger to gain from this. And you do. You have tremendous to gain. You give up your sense of limitations. This is where Arjuna says, Karpanya bhavam apahachite chedasaha. He says, I am kripanaha. Kripanaha means I am so conjuice. I am miser, my miserliness. So the miserliness means that I am clinging to a sense of limitation because I think there is nothing else, because I don't know that I have the whole thing. I can tap it into it, but I should have the courage and the wisdom to be able to do so. So this is the meaning of Vishwasya Atva Vivakshaya. So here, another interesting thing. He says, Swami Maheshanji says, that what happens is, the word he takes another very beautiful analysis of the word in Sanskrit. So the word in addition to all the other things that we're talking about, which is adimatvat, and then it is there in all of this. Another meaning of is, it is nanjartha. Nanjartha means that it is not there. So when you say vidya, means knowledge. Avidya means non-knowledge. Okay, so he takes that way of looking at things. Then he says, this is an important thing to see, that this negation, which is given by the word doesn't mean a complete absence, but it means that the way you are looking at it is not correct. He gives an example. He says, supposing you start to give an upadesha, you're giving some kind of a lecture on something, and who are you giving it to? A brick sitting in front of you. He says, you are created by Ishvara, don't you see? And the brick is just sitting there doing nothing. So you said, this is such a fool. You can't use things like that. But suppose you have a person who says, sir, I want to learn a little bit of Vedanta. So you spend 6 months teaching them, and the person says, I have no idea what you're talking about. Then you can conclude that this person is not ready. You can't do that to a brick, but only when there is a capability of understanding, and there is no understanding, this is avidya. He gave an example. He says, there was and this happens all the time, I can tell you this. So there was a Raja and a king, very powerful king, very successful and so on. And what usually happens is that these kings, they also feel that there is some Mahatma sitting there in the corner, and I need to learn from that Mahatma. And so, and the way it happens is that you feel like I've done everything else, but I have not looked into this knowledge, and therefore I need to get knowledge also, as though there is another arrow in my quiver. Okay? So this king goes to a Mahatma and said, "Sir, please give me some instructions about Vedanta." So this Mahatma looked inside. He looked at him and he says, "This guy he doesn't have the qualities of being a student." So he says, "Okay, before we talk, let's have tea together." So the king said, "Sir, that'll be wonderful." So he says, "Let me pour the tea to you." So he takes the cup of the Raja and pours the tea into it, and keeps on pouring. And then goes to the end and it starts to spill. So the Raja said, "Son, what are you doing? The cup is already full and you're still pouring." He says, "Oh, okay, yeah, I understand." And then he pours it himself, and they both had tea together. And the Raja says, "Sir, I came here to listen to this, and the tea is over. Please teach me now." So the Mahatma says, "That has already been done. The lecture is over." So he says, "What do you mean?" He says, "I cannot teach if your mind is full of other things. I cannot pour it anymore. Cannot do that." So the king said, "Okay, I understand." There's been a couple of cases even in my own situation. There was this lady that had approached someone that, "Is there somebody to teach me Gita?" So some friend said, "There's this Vijay Kapoor is teaching Gita, please go to it." So she approached me, a very successful person and so on, about 5-6 years ago. I also looked at her and I said, never know. I said, "Please come to the classes." After 3 classes, I never saw her. It's not possible. So here the meaning is, the word, the letter A doesn't mean that there is no vidya at all. It means it's a wrong vidya. Wrong vidya means that in the case of these rajas and this lady that I had once had come to me, their understanding is that this is the reality. I just have to just manage a few things and so on and so forth. Nothing else is possible. Nothing is possible. So it is not that, it is just that it is a wrong understanding. Wrong understanding means, this is a very important thing that Swamiji is pointing out. The wrong understanding means you have to admit, see for yourself that this is a wrong understanding for you to become receptive to the right understanding. Until then, your cup is just going to be full. There's nothing more that you can pour into it. And so therefore, the key part of the teaching and the key part of learning is to conclude that the way I am going in my life, of keeping my personality intact, is not leading me anywhere. There's a problem here somewhere. Until you admit that to yourself, don't ever admit to anybody else. It's not as though we want you to take oath or nothing like that. But nothing will come into you until you start to understand that this is a problem. This is an issue. This is the important thing that he's talking about. And so here, one last thing that Swamiji pointed out is that it doesn't mean that the sense of, this is why I pointed out the word not real is to be substituted by a lower level of reality. And this, I mean, I wasn't even thinking of this word, but it must have really influenced my thinking when I decided to use that as part of the meditation. Because here's the thing, you should see this very carefully, very well. This is the distinction between the Vedic thinking and the Buddhistic thinking. Buddhism and Hinduism are totally different. It looks like they are very similar, but they are like two sides of a circle. One is on this side, one is on that side. They look like they're touching. They're not. How? What happens is, Buddhism says that the whole world is mithya. So what is left? Mithya means either it is kshanika vijnanam or it is shunyavadi. There is nothing left. We don't say that. We say that what you consider to be real is mithya. But there is another level of reality that we should see. So it is not absence of reality, it is the wrong conclusion of reality. And so here, Swami Vishwanji points out two instances where he says, Aham Brahmasmi. Then Sarvam Khalu Idam Brahma. There are two separate ones. So Aham Brahmasmi means that the Vishwa is basically Brahman. That the heat of the water, it is kind of like I am water, or I am the heat of the water. Yeah, heat of the water, not water, heat of the water. And I feel this is me. I don't realize that my heat depends upon the fire's heat. So this is what is called Aham Brahmasmi. And you also find that the whole world is also nothing but Brahman. See, so when you say a lower level of reality, it means that my conclusion of other things being not real means that they are also nothing but an expression of the real reality. So therefore, in conclusion, both my experiences as well as me, the experiencer, are nothing but an expression of Brahman alone. Anyway, so the one thing that we didn't get to, which I'll do that next time, is Swamiji's understanding and the analysis of the word utkatam. Utkatam. So this is an interesting thing to see. So on the Karika number 19, Vishwasya Atva Vivakshayam Adi Samanyam Utkatam. So this word utkatam is an interesting word that he really tries to explain. And that explanation is much more in depth than any of the other translation, including Swami Paramarthananda. So I want to highlight that as part of this analysis, and we will do that next class. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahim Mahisha Go Brahmanebhyah Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Kale Varshatu Parjanyah Prithvi Sasya Shalini देशोऽयं शोभरहितः ब्राह्मणाः सन्तु निर्भयाः सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम
I was surprised when you said that Vishwa is not Nitya.
Surprised that I said that Vishwa is not Mithya?
Yeah.
I didn't say that. I said just the opposite. What do you mean? How did you conclude that I said that?
You said the Buddhists consider the Vishwa to be Nitya, but in Hinduism you said Vishwa is not.
So in Hinduism we say Vishwa is nothing but Brahman. We don't say it is Mithya. The concept of Vishwa per se is Mithya, but the concept of Vishwa as Mithya has to be substituted by the Vishwa being nothing but Brahman. See,
So Vishwa is not real. Come on.
right. So it has to be what is real is the Brahman, which is the very. So Vishwa is nothing but a label. See, the label is wrong. This is all we are saying. That Vishwa is the label. So just like you say that the room space is a label of the total space. The total space is real, but the room space is just a label which is useful in a particular situation, but it doesn't have reality per se. So in that sense, Vishwa is false in its in the way it is talked about, but the reality of the Vishwa is that it is really Brahman. Yeah.
Sir, this Brahma, Vishwa is Brahma itself, but except that it appears to die, it
Right.
is impermanent.
Right.
It appears to be impermanent.
Correct. So it appears to be not permanent when in fact really it is. Yeah.
So we should, but it is said that we should be detached and Atma and Atma Vivek should be done. Then why do we have to do that?
Why do we have to do what?
Atma and Atma Vivek, that means Jad or Chetan, differentiation, and that you are not that. Jad which is perishing all the time,
Yeah.
and you are Akshara. So we have to do that to realize Brahman. But it is all Brahman.
Yeah, so it is all Brahman, but I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is because I fail to do this Viveka. So once I do the Viveka, I find that my taking Brahman to be limited is false. There is a falseness in my assumption. That's all that I have to do.
But otherwise it is all Brahman.
Yeah. There's only one thing, which is Brahman, yeah.
So, Aham Brahma Asmi is a Mahavakya, right? And you're saying Vishwa is all Brahman. The experience and the truth of the experience and the experiencer are Brahman alone.
Yeah.
Whereas the experience as we know it and the experiencer, the small I, are Mithya.
Correct.
But the truth of both of them
Yeah.
is Brahman.
Well, just very much like a dream. So the
Right.
dream character is also false,
Right.
and the other characters in the dream are also false. Only the consciousness which is the reality. Yeah.
Thank you.
But I think that what happens is that where this verse is useful is to accentuate the point that your experiences and the experiencer both need to be clubbed together in analyzing the mithyatvam. We don't do that. We feel that, for example, when you criticize somebody and you are critical of someone and say, how can that person be that way, this, that, or the other? It is all with respect to the point that I am okay, but others are not, which also has falseness into it. So both of you, you have to even analyze, why am I thinking that way? Has given some, and so on. So it is really just to point out that the whole thing has to be given up.
Right.
Otherwise, you won't see the reality. Yeah. So it's not as though it is something. So what I'm saying is that it's not as though we didn't know this before, but we failed to accentuate it. We failed to put emphasis, because this is where we draw a line that don't mess with me. You guys, whatever you want to do is up to you, but you have to really give up yourself too. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see.
So Vijay, that was my prayer in the morning is Aham Brahmasmi. So when I'm saying that, I have to say that Aham Brahmasmi, I am the thinker of the Brahman, behind the experience and all the experience.
Yeah.
I'm not Aham Brahmasmi as in everything.
Right.
Is that a correction that they might be taking? So I'm not part of everything. So I get it now. So I'm not part of, I am everything, yet but everything is